Hello, everybody, and welcome to the VETRO FiberMap User Enablement Webinar Series, Session 3. This is the third in a line of customer enablement and sort of training-oriented webinars that go deep into a specific feature of the platform. We are coming to you live from cold and snowy Portland, Maine today. We hope everybody is safe and sound and making it through the winter weather wherever you are. I know it's cold in much of the middle of the country as well. My name is Will Mitchell. I'm the CEO and the co-founder at VETRO FiberMap. And I'm here with Stephen Marchessault, who is our customer success lead. He helps lead a team who helps our users be successful with the platform, troubleshoot issues, takes feature requests, and generally is a nice and helpful guy. Stephen's going to lead us through today's session on reporting from VETRO. One quick note, you may have received an e-news email from us, but if not, I wanted to let everybody know we've just launched a shiny new website at vetrofibermap.com. That will be a place where we continue to add information, instructional videos and links over time. It also lists where we're going to be out and about. Busy season out at shows and meetings and meeting with customers. In fact, today, co-founder Sean Myers is down in sunny Miami at the Metro Connect show. Lucky Sean. With no further ado here, I'm going to let Stephen take this over and give us a deep dive into VETRO FiberMap's reporting capabilities.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Stephen Marchessault here, Customer Success Specialist at VETRO FiberMap. Thank you for joining us today for the third User Enablement webinar. Very glad to be here with you all again. Today, we'll be talking about reports in VETRO FiberMap. A couple of webinar-related and other housekeeping announcements and reminders. Feel free to use the Q&A functionality of the Zoom webinar if you're viewing this live. You can submit questions. We have VETRO panelists standing by to answer these questions for you. And if you don't receive a reply straight away, we can set your question aside until the end of the talking point. Get back in touch with you with an answer. We'll follow up in one way or another. So today's webinar will also be recorded. So all attendees will receive an email later today with a link to view or download the recording. So we'll be interweaving slides with the demo as we go. So thanks again for joining us. So just a quick review of the previous webinars. We've gone so far over the draw, validate, and build process and the circuit management and designing process. We have recordings of those available. If you would like those recordings, you can contact us at our email, support@vetrofibermap.com. And in the upcoming release, this afternoon of VETRO FiberMap version 1.8.1. The recordings will also be available in the help documentation of the webinars. So jumping right into a request that we have of you, our users and our audience, we would like to know, are there any new reports or features of currently existing reports that you would find useful when designing, building, and managing your networks in VETRO FiberMap? So if you have ideas at any point right now or throughout the course of this webinar, please feel free to submit those via the Q&A to our panelists to let you know that they received your information, and we'll follow up with you on that. And you can also submit feature requests at any time to our support email at support@vetrofibermap.com. So today we'll be talking about reports in VETRO FiberMap. The reports are an automated output of the network information that you designed and captured in the platform. When we designed the reports, we of course wanted them to contain useful information that could be used for reference, management purposes, or to communicate build plans to field teams. But it was also important to design something that is quick and easy to understand and use. We thought that was very important for our users, that they would have immediate access to these reports. So something that we'll be thinking about today as we go through some of the report types is where does this data exist in VETRO that's being extracted for the report? And then how is that data managed? And then we'll talk a little bit about the layout and the content of the report types. So jumping right in, the first report we'll talk about is the bill of materials. So the bill of materials has a few requirements and a few things that are key to the understanding of setting it up and making sure that all of the materials are in place. So it requires that you assign materials to your network features, and those material assignments come from material templates, which you create and manage in the material management menu. And we'll also have a look at the material validation that can be run to verify that all features have a material assignment in a plan. So I'm going to pause my screen really quick here and jump over to VETRO. All right, here's VETRO FiberMap, which you should be familiar with at this point. So here's the network that we've been working on so far in our webinar in Walcott, Iowa. We have done some drawing, we've done some building and validating, we've created some circuits. And so now we're going to look at the material assignments that give rise to the bill of materials. So right now we're in read-only mode, so we can jump into any of these points, the splice closure, for example, and if I select the material tab, I can see a material assignment that was made for this splice closure that captures the manufacturer, the unit cost, the labor costs. We can also do assignments to any equipment that we attach to a network point. We also include this information within cables. So if I select the backbone, the material tab, we can see that we have a unit cost per foot and a labor cost per foot. Those can also be input on a per unit basis, which I'll show you. So a cost per an entire cable, if that suits your needs better. So if I enable editing mode here, and then editing mode for our plan, I can now jump into the splice closure and see I have the ability to select a material template here, and then I can apply this material template to this entire plan, all instances of splice closures across the plan, all instances of splice closures across the project. And then in a moment, I'll show you where we manage material templates. So if you make changes to those material templates after you've done an assignment, they don't push retroactively. So we designed it that way to capture legacy costing. So if you want to update the template updates in your material assignments, then you'll need to come in here and either update the single feature or update the entire plan. So where we create and manage the templates for these assignments is in the user dashboard here. And we'll open the material manager. And so from here, we can input manufacturers and brands or vendors and suppliers. And then once we have entered that information, we can jump into the templates here and grab one of the network feature types that we're looking at, say, the lateral fiber. And we can add a new template where we can grab the manufacturer or the vendor, we can input the part number, and we can input the unit cost or the labor cost on a per foot basis, per cable basis, or per meter basis, and include notes and save. And I have some examples saved here as well. So this is a process that's done on a per feature basis. If you have a large list of vendors and suppliers and manufacturers and material across network points, cables, equipment, we have a CSV bulk import spreadsheet that we can make available to you. So you can fill that out and you can send it back to us, and we'll load that into your instance for you. So some flexibility there if you'd rather do the manual input, or if you'd like to do that on more of a bulk scale if you already have all of that information in one place. So once we have a template created, we can then jump into any of these points and apply that material template here. So there's an additional tool that I wanted to highlight in the toolbox. As you're going along doing your material assignments, you can use this tool here to validate materials. And this will create a list of all points or cables in this network that do not currently have a material assignment. So for example, this drop here, and it brings us to this point, and I can jump in here and assign, say, the 1 count drop and save. And so this is a way of sort of checking the work and making sure that you've covered everything. And then once you're at the point where you're satisfied with the material assignments, if you have all of the material assignments that you need, you can then jump into the user dashboard here, the reports, expand the bill of materials report, expand the plans, and from here we can select the plan we're interested in and download. So now I have generated a spreadsheet of our bill of materials. So we'll open that here. So what we see here is an automated output of all of the features that have a material template assigned have now been included into this bill of materials. So for example, the laterals and the backbones that have these templates assigned, this is the total length of this assignment, this material, at this unit cost. And then at this labor cost, here's our subtotal, and then subtotals for all cables. And then we also have different categories that can be included as well: network points, equipment, ducts, hardware, so on, and then a grand total right here. So that's our bill of materials. Now I'm going to jump right into the slides again, and we'll talk about the next report type in VETRO FiberMap, which is the circuit report. So the circuit report is something that we touched on a little bit last time in our previous webinar. If you want more information on the creation and management of circuits, I would recommend checking out the recording of that last webinar, where we really get into circuits and what they are and how they're created. But I'll show you here with some of the circuits that are already created in this instance, how we access the circuits in various ways, how we open this report as a single output or a batch output. And the really important thing is that this PDF output shows us all of the network points, cables, fibers, equipment, and circuit attributes with this one circuit. And then there's an additional report that we'll highlight here, which is the tabular CSV export. So jumping back into VETRO again here. I will close our dashboard, save. So there are a few different ways that we can jump into circuits. Two of the better ways are from within the point itself or by searching. So if you have a point that's involved in a circuit, like one of the endpoints, or you grab any point or cable that is involved in a circuit on the midspan, we can open the point like this FAT here and scroll down in the attributes, and we see this menu show circuits. And from here, we can select one of our circuits. We can also search for a circuit. So if I search for 51, we'll say, we can open our circuit this way. So here we see the details for this circuit, right? Here's the circuit ID, which with the auto-generated system ID that iterates by 1. We have the customer name, customer information, the type, the circuit length, or notes. All of this is very important. We'll see in a moment, and we'll see where it outputs in the circuit report. But all of this is captured here. Here, this tab, the trace, shows us each of the points, similar to what we see in Fiber Manager. You can jump into the splice diagrams from here. And then we also have the OTDR tab, where we can input any information that we might have added from an OTDR tool. So if we have an end-to-end loss reading on this circuit, we can store that information here. We can give our instrument output on the length here. And we can also upload any output files that might be associated with the OTDR software. So for example, this OTDR output has been attached to this circuit right here. So we'll jump right back into VETRO. So now we want to have a look at the circuit report. So we can select this link right here in the details, and this will output the PDF that I mentioned for this single circuit. So here we see the circuit ID, and at the top, the VETRO FiberMap logo. It's possible to upload in the dashboard, to upload your own logo for your company. This is also an option for the Splice reports. So this is completely customizable. So what we see here is the Fiber Manager trace on the left-hand side. We have our A location with lat and lon. We have our CO ID, the equipment ID, the port that we're connecting at, the address. And then we see all of the relevant information about the point IDs and the cables that are connecting to those points, their lengths, fibers. If there's any equipment involved along the way, like the splice closure here, this is the ID of the splitter on the splice closure, and we're going out over port 3. And then we finally end up at our service location. Here's the equipment at the service location, the port we're connecting at, the customer name, the address, lat lon. So it's loaded with information. A lot of this is shown here as well. So all of those fields that I showed you, like the OTDR trace, the length, the type, any notes, all of this is captured right here in these fields. And then if we scroll to the second page, we also see a map for this. So this is the one-off output. We can also jump into the dashboard here and head back to the report section. And if we expand the circuit report section, we can also do a PDF batch output for an entire project or plan. So let's say the Walcott, Iowa, and phase 1, we have 25 PDFs for all of the 25 circuits that exist in this network. And that will be output as a zip file of all of those, which you can download right here. And then the last thing we want to look at is this right here, generate inventory. So this will output a tabular CSV of our circuit report. So we'll jump into this here. So export. I'm switching applications, and here we are. So this is the output from that tabular CSV. So here we see the ID, the circuit ID, the customer name, A location port, address. We've included what is being referred to as the Z-1. So that's the penultimate or the last point in the network before the Z location. So this is an important piece of information for some of our customers to capture. If we have a splitter, that is our last hop before we run the drop to our service location. And then the Z location itself, the port, its address, any loss information, length, and then here is the pathway, including the network points and IDs. So a lot of customers express an interest in having this information in a table so then they could grab that output and work with it in other applications if needed. So that's the end of the circuit reports. Now we want to talk about the OTDR break report. So to share my screen again. So the OTDR break report is something that we'll manage right within the circuit report or the circuit details view. So from here, if we input the OTDR instrumentation distance to the break, so say for example, a customer calls in and says, I've lost internet, I think there's a break in the line. And so you go to a point in the network where you can run your OTDR tool and you'll get a reading, a distance to the break. So we can input that distance, indicate the direction, and then we'll have an output that shows us all of the potentially affected service locations that are downstream of that break. So let's take a look at how we do that. So back in VETRO FiberMap, we are looking at, let's say, this location right here, for example. This FAT in the corner is a place where we can easily run our OTDR trace to search for breaks after our customer has called in. So we'll expand this point and expand the circuits that are downstream from this point, and we'll say circuit 15. So the customer, Jefferson, called in and said, my service is down. And so we dispatched to the FAT on the corner here, and we input our distance, say 435 feet. And we want to go from this point downstream. And now we calculate. And so this indicates from this FAT downstream 435 feet, this is where the breakage has occurred, right next to North Grove Street. So we'll create the breakage report, and this shows us a list of all the downstream service locations. And so from here, we can download this report, and we will jump into this one right here in the downloads. And so what is output is a list of all of those service location IDs for circuits that are downstream of the break, their names and their addresses. So now we have a sense of these customers may also be affected by this break. So now I'm going to jump into the next report, which is a very popular option. We've done some work on this very recently. This is the Splice Report. So the Splice Report shows us all of the connections to a single network point in our network. The way that we manage this is in the splice diagram and the show equipment connections menu. So within this report, we have organization by table of the different cables. So we're able to see exactly what's going on with cable A, exactly what's going on with cable B, cable C, and so on, what each of the fibers of that cable are connecting to. And so what their statuses are, if they're cut, if they're passed through, if they're part of a circuit. This output also includes a map, the lat long, the location address, and again, a customizable logo. So jumping over to VETRO again. We'll have a look at, say, for example, this fiber access terminal here. And if we expand the attributes, we can run the splice report from here. So again, the splice diagram is where we manage our splicing. And the show equipment connections is where we manage the connections to multiple pieces of equipment. But here is where we can display our report. And I have an example here. So there are some features that we are adding this afternoon in the newest release of VETRO FiberMap, version 1.8.1. So I have a separate output that I wanted to share with you here. Well, that's fine. In any case, I'll show you what we have here. So it'll be very similar to this, but there will be an equipment table at the end, which I'll explain. So what we see when we open this PDF is here is the ID for this point. Here is the address and the lat long coordinates. And we see this map here where all of the cables that are coming and going have been assigned a letter of the alphabet. And then beneath here, we see those letters and the corresponding cables that they correspond to, and their counts, the direction that they're going to, the equipment that they're connecting to, and the address of that equipment. So page after page, we see this legend and this map repeat. What changes is this second table for these cables here. So first we're looking at cable A, cable B, cable C, and I guess we'll focus in on cable C. It's the upstream cable in this network, so it's a lot more interesting. So we see cable C is our lateral 280 that's going north. It's a 36 count. So here are all of the fibers of cable C. So to begin with, fibers 1 through 4 all share the same status, they're cut. Fiber 5 connects to this splitter and goes out over ports 2, 1, and 3. When it goes out over port 1, it connects to fiber 1 of cable F, which is this lateral here, 330, and it forms this circuit right here. This range of fibers 6 through 8 is a pass-through. And then here we see one-to-one connections, right? So fiber 14 is connecting to fiber 14 of cable E, which is our lateral 300, which goes west from that point. So it gives us information about everything that's going on with these points and with the cables contained within the point. So the addition that we see in this newest release is we now have an equipment table at the end of the report. And the equipment table shows us all of the equipment connections. So it's sort of a repeat of the information that you can extract from the cables. But if you want to see, what's happening with my splitters alone, then you can get that information from that table. So switching back to the slides here, the next thing we'll talk about is our map book. So the map book is a technical drawing that can be used to communicate your network design within your team. In some cases, it can be submitted for permitting. There's a lot of flexibility that has been built into how you can customize the output. So you can customize the scale, the network layers, you can customize the labels for your map book, for the cables and the points. You can customize the base map and the selection of plans and a few other things. So we'll have a look at what that looks like in VETRO. Just jumping back here. So in this plan, I have 2 plans within this project in Walcott, Iowa. I have this phase 1 build design. And I also have ducts. So the ducts themselves could be contained within this plan, and I'll show you how we can manage the output in the map book to display just the ducts or just the network. Or if it makes more sense for your design, you can also separate out features across plans. So there's flexibility there. So just wanted to highlight that really quick. And now to run the map book, we'll run into the dashboard here and expand the map book. And the plan that I'm interested in here is Walcott phase 1. And from here, we can change the page size. We can indicate a different scale. We can select a base map, whether we want to show labels. And then we have the option to customize which layers display. So say I'm only interested in the backbone and the drops for this. I can enter the title. Say this is Walcott phase 1 permit and generate. So this will generate the map book down here. That can take a moment, so I'm going to jump into the output that I've already created, which is this one here. And so we'll open this up. So the output of the map book is a multi-page PDF. So we have in the top right corner here, this inset map that helps us navigate the many pages. So we have a grid, and then we have the edges of the sheet that tell us which part of the grid we need to go to for the next section of that map. So we'll just focus in on this section for now. So what we see here is the points and the cables. So for the service locations, the label that was customized for this was the point ID and the address. For the FATs, it was only the point ID. In the case of the drops, it looks like it was the ID and the fiber count. So we also see the scale, the bar scale and the written scale. Here's our north arrow. And as we move along, we see this red box in the top right corner moves with us to reflect what part of the inset map we are now looking at as we move through our network. So we can also take a look at an output for, say, the ducts. So I'll jump over to the ducts plan. And from here, I want to reset this. Actually, before I do this, I want to show you one quick feature, which is the ability to customize the labels. So this will be important when we're looking at the ducts, right? So before, when I was looking at the service locations, we saw the ID and the address. So the place that we customize that, if you open the layer list here and select the layer tab, if you right click on any of the fiber cables or network points or infrastructure, you can customize how the labeling looks. So we'll right click on the service locations, select update layer behavior, and here we see labels are enabled. We can select up to 3 fields to show for labels within the map book. So right now we have ID and street address. We also have the option to choose any attribute that exists within that point type. So the other thing that we want to look at is ducts. So I'm going to close this, open the ducts, and here we're looking at the ID, the duct configuration, which means the number of microducts, and then the length for the duct. So if I go through the same process and output the Walcott duct mapbook at the same scale as the other one, 1 to 2400, this is the end result. So we can choose to have the ducts in the same plan, and we can show them overlaying with the network, or we can isolate them on a layer by layer basis, or in this case, I just created a brand new plan and created the ducts there. So here we see, we don't need a lot of ducts in this town, but there's one here. This is the ID. This second number here is the microduct count, and this third number is the total length of the duct. And so that labeling scheme repeats across each of these. This duct here is a 3 microduct count and the total length. So that concludes the map book. Now we want to talk a little bit about a newer report type, the analytics portal. So the analytics portal is a high-level overview of your network build. It's a executive level network statistics kind of view of what's going on with this build on a grand scheme. So we have some options built in to show summary statistics for our cables and assets. We can view fiber strand miles by status, say if they're available, in use, or reserved. And we can also toggle the as-built and partner cables. So I'll show you where some of these settings exist in VETRO, and then how we open up the analytics portal. So moving back over to VETRO, here we are. So we'll have a look at, within the plans panel in our layer list, we have the ability to set phases. So if you're working on capturing the design of a network that's already in place, you could say this is as built. If it's a design, you can set that here, or if it's under construction, you can set that here. And so these phases give rise to some of the phases that we end up seeing in the analytics portal. So if I jump into the menu here and select analytics, what we'll be presented with is a view of our network. So the one that I'm working on today has been flagged as built. So first we'll look at this category of cables and route miles. So right now we're looking at a breakdown by cable type, right? So these are the current route miles in this network by cable type. So here's our map. So someone who wanted to have a quick look at the status of this network, what's going on, here we are in Walcott, and here are the percentages, and here are the totals for the total builds. And here's the final mileage of all of those combined. We can also look at the placement. So some of those cables are going into ducts, some of them are aerial, some of them are yet to be set. So here we see the total mileages of those assignments and the percentages. And then we can jump into the fiber, the status of the fiber. So here we can see how much of it is currently available, how much is currently in use, and how much has been set aside as reserved to give rise to future circuits. That's something that we covered before in the circuits. So these are our fiber strands that you have set aside in case a customer is ready to sign on sort of like a location by location basis. And from within here, yep, that's it for fiber. So that's the analytics portal. It's kind of a nice flashy display of what's going on a higher level. So you can report to executives in your company, for example, here's the status of what we're doing. So the next thing that we want to look at is the neighborhood report. And there'll be two more reports in this presentation today. The neighborhood reports, and then one more, which is up and coming, just to let you know where we're at in the presentation. So the neighborhood report is a macro costing analysis tool. So this is something that requires the drawing of a polygon around a certain region if you're interested in crunching some macro costing numbers. It does require that you have business and premise point data loaded into your instance. So we have business points and premise points that we can source, improve, and load for you upon request. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you do this analysis, you'll get an output of calculations, and those are based on the cost and revenue settings, which you configure in the dashboard in the tool section. So you can customize what is the percentage take rate, what do you figure would be the monthly revenue per residence average, monthly revenue per business average. You can customize all of those settings. So to generate this report, you need to expand the analysis panel. And then if you select the neighborhood that you're interested in, the polygon that you created, you can select the export menu and then the neighborhood report. So we'll have a quick look here at what that ends up looking like. So this is the output. We have our map here at the top, and within that polygon, we see the number of businesses and residences and structures, the total route length based on the road center lines, the projected customers, and an analysis of the payback period that is based on the cost and the revenue. So here we see we have a 90% take rate, which might be why we're seeing a payback period of 0.1 years. Maybe that's really ambitious, but all of this is customizable. So you can adjust those settings as you need to. And now we will jump over to the Duct Report. So the Duct Report is not currently available in VETRO FiberMap, but it will be after our release this afternoon of VETRO FiberMap version 1.8.1. So we've heard some requests that we want to, that our customers and users want to capture some more information about cable assignments to microducts in their projects. So we created this Duct Report as a first iteration of what we're imagining for what would be useful, and we would be really curious to hear your feedback on this. But here we see we're displaying all microducts that are contained within a duct. Here we see the information like the duct ID, its length, the configuration, which is the number of microducts. And then we see a graphical representation of where cables are entering and exiting that duct and the length that they're occupying. And then for any empty space that exists between the cables, we've added this negative space that we're calling available, and we include the length of that as well. So we think this will be useful. Again, we would be really curious to hear what you think. Feedback is welcome. So that concludes all of the regularly scheduled content for today. Please be on the lookout for invites to future user enablement sessions. And just a reminder to get in touch with our technical support team Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern via email or phone if you have questions about anything. For any general information, including sales inquiries, please contact our sales team. We're very excited to hear from you and eager to help. So yeah, please stay in touch. So we have some questions that have come in. We have one, I think, yep. So the question is, do you need to have an editor license to run the reports, or can they be accessed by a viewer license? So the answer to that question is we do allow granularity around permissions for the users to grant editor rights and viewer rights across different plans and features. So editors are able to draw and design the network and make changes. Viewers, we have been selective about the features that viewers are allowed to do, so some of the macro costing tools and the reports we thought were very important for say a sales or marketing team to be able to get in with viewer rights and be able to extract these reports. So the answer to that question is no. You do not need to have editor rights in order to be able to generate the reports.
One follow-up comment on that. There are various forms of data exporting. Some of these reports you could consider data exports, for example, address lists from a neighborhood polygon. That can be done by a viewer user. The one exception that I would point out is that spatial data export in the form of shape files and KMZ files or DXF files do require the license to be an editor license. It's a little asterisk on that one.
Thanks.
Yes, and one breaking news correction. The release Stephen mentioned coming out today is release 1.8.2. We're moving too fast, can't keep up. So just to avoid any confusion, 1.8.2, we'll have that Duct Report and some other enhancements. Of course, we'll keep going. We're pushing releases, minor releases and hot fixes every couple of weeks, and usually a major release at least once a month.
Great. Version 1.8.2 coming out today. Sorry about that, folks. So that concludes the rest of this session from everyone here at VETRO FiberMap. Thank you again for joining. We look forward to hearing from you and continuing to work together to make VETRO FiberMap the best fiber design and management tool available. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.